Friends and honored guests, please take your seats. The program will begin in 5 minutes. Please silence your mobile devices. Our program is about to begin. Please silence your mobile devices. Our program is about to begin. Please welcome back to the stage our General Assembly House Band, Shafuni.
Hello, everybody. Hello, everybody. I'm Daniel Weiss from Kibbutz Be'eri. On October 7th, me and my brothers, my parents, have been in the kibbutz. And while the Hamas attack, we've been there for hours, evacuated at night, late at night. At morning, we have lost the connection with our parents and woke up next morning not knowing nothing about our parents. A week after, they told us that our mother is kidnapped and our father is murdered. And a month after, we do the Shloshim ceremony of our father, Shmulik Weiss. And at the same day, military forces came to our place and told us that they found our mother body, Judith Weiss, on Gaza. And when we started to think what to do in where I do the funeral of our father, I knew immediately I want to give him a song that he really loved called Ani Gitara. אני גיטרה, הרוח מנגן עליי בחילופי עונות. אני גיטרה ומישהו פורט עליי בחילופי המנגינות. כשמתחשק לי לפלרטט, אני פוצח בדואט, גם אם זה טריו או קוורטט, זה לא מפריע. על משבצות אדום לבן, אשכול בשל על השולחן, ואגסים דמויי סזן, וגם סנגריה. אני גיטרה, הרוח מנגן עליי בחילופי עונות. אני גיטרה ומישהו פורט עליי בחילופי המנגינות. אני סימן, אני עדות לידידות ולבדידות, וגם במשעולי ילדות אצעד לבטח, הרפתקאות צועניות, במטוסים, באוניות, בטעויות צבעוניות, על כל השטח. אני גיטרה, הרוח מנגן עליי בחילופי עונות. אני גיטרה ומישהו פורט עליי בחילופי המנגינות. מה שנוגע לבנות, יש הסכמים, יש הבנות, ואין לי טענות, גם לא היו לי, לא התייאשתי מימיי, כי מה שלא קרה במאי יקרה בעזרת השם ודאי ביוני-יולי. אני גיטרה, הייתי פעם עץ אולי, ובתיבת התהודה אני זוכר את כל מי שניגן עליי, ואני אומר, אבא, אמא, תודה. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Hi everyone, we're N Border, previously known as Shufuni Band. We're from Gaza Envelope, and we're gonna perform another song for you, which is a prayer called Shir LaMa'alot. You're very, very welcome to join us. We want to dedicate it as a prayer for protection for our soldiers and protectors, and for the hostages to get back home safely now, and for this war to be over, and for our hearts to heal.
שיר למעלות, אשא עיניי אל ההרים, מאין יבוא עזרי מעם השם, עושה שמיים וארץ, אל יתן לעמוד רגליך, אל ינום שומרך, הנה לא ינום ולא יישן שומר ישראל, השם שומרך, השם צילך, על יד ימינך, יומם השמש לא הקרקע והריח בלילה, השם ישמורך מכל רע, ישמור את נפשך, השם ישמור צאתך ובואך מעתה ועד עולם, מעתה ועד עולם. ועד עולם.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Please welcome the chair of the Israel and Overseas Committee of the Jewish Federations of North America, Sarah Gottlieb.
On October 7th, 2023, we witnessed unimaginable acts of terror that left deep trauma on the Israeli people. The magnitude and character of the attacks were unlike anything we could have thought possible. Amidst the horror, the Federation system articulated an unprecedented, resounding Hineni, here we are. We leapt forward to support our brothers and sisters in Israel like never before. Jewish federations together have raised over $850 million. This almost miraculous achievement is due to the hard work, dedication, and Ahavat Yisrael, the love of the Jewish people, of thousands upon thousands of people here today at the General Assembly and at home in our communities. We should also be proud of the care, thoughtfulness, and strategic approach to allocating funds to provide the greatest help to the Israelis in need. I'm a marathon runner in my spare time, and this campaign has been much more of a marathon than a sprint. That's because the scale of suffering and trauma that was caused by Hamas on October 7th and the needs of the Israeli people have been so enormous. From the beginning, we have allocated funds across four main pillars: lifeline services to ensure access to essentials like food, clothing, and housing; medical and trauma relief by equipping hospitals, training caregivers, and setting up hotlines for those in need. Economic relief through an emergency loan fund, providing hundreds of millions of dollars to help small and medium businesses stay afloat, and community resilience and rebuilding efforts to support tens of thousands of displaced people, especially in the North, in returning home and restoring their communities when it's safe. It's difficult to convey how much we have accomplished this year to save lives and helped Israelis. Above all, we have demonstrated the strength of the enduring relationship between North American Jews and Israel. In this profoundly challenging time for the Jewish people, our leadership and contributions have created a lasting impact. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for all that you have done, and in advance for all that you will continue to do as these crises continue. Together, we have affirmed loudly and clearly that the North American Jewish community will always be here for our brothers and sisters in Israel, as our parents and grandparents were as well, and as our children and grandchildren will be. This work would not be possible without our historic partners, the Jewish Agency for Israel and the American Jewish Joint Distribution Committee, who have been on the ground in Israel for many decades, powered by Jewish Federation's annual campaigns. In a moment, I will turn the stage over to our partners at the Jewish Agency for Israel to help bring us a little bit closer to their incredible work. But first, it is my pleasure and privilege to welcome great Israeli leaders who are dedicated to helping the people of Israel and to strengthening the bonds between Israel and the North American Jewish community. Please join me in welcoming the First Lady of Israel, Michal Herzog, together with Ambassador Michael Herzog and his wife, Shireen Herzog. Welcome to you. Welcome to you, and thank you so much for being here. We are also so fortunate to be joined by President Isaac Herzog, who will be addressing this audience in the second half of the plenary. And now I will invite the immediate past chair of Jewish Federations of North America and chairman of the Board of Governors of the Jewish Agency for Israel, Mark Wilf.
Thank you so much, Sarah. 21 years ago, Israel found itself in the middle of the Second Intifada, with daily reports of buses exploding and stabbings in the markets. Jews around the world wanted a way to connect with the people of Israel who were the victims of terrorist violence. In partnership with Jewish Federations, the Jewish Agency for Israel created a fund for the victims of terror. Within 48 hours of a terrorist attack, we visit the victim and their family, deliver an initial financial grant, and let them know that Jews around the world are thinking of them on the worst day of their lives. For the next 3 years, the fund accompanies the victim and their family through their physical and emotional rehabilitation. I have personally had the honor of delivering many of these grants to the victims and their families, and I've been able to witness firsthand the impact this care has on their lives. Each and every time they look at me and tell me how much it means to them that the global Jewish community is with them during their time of great need. Your leadership and generosity makes this life-changing work possible and has impacted thousands of lives since October 7th. One of those lives is a young woman from Kfar Aza. Please meet Irene.
Neta and I met at a bar, and he was the weird one. Then when he asked me to go on a date with him, I said no, because you are the weird one. But he never gave up and asked me again and again, so eventually I said yes. He told me that I will fall in love with him, and he was right. I fell in love very, very quickly. He was so charming and kind, and he has a beautiful soul. He was my best friend. He was my everything. In October 22, we moved to this apartment in Kibbutz Kfar Aza. I really love this area. It's a beautiful place. It's like heaven to me. It's like one big family. Everyone knows everyone, and everyone helping everyone. We get up at 6:30 in the morning from the alarm. They tell us that rockets are coming. Our safe room is our bedroom, so we just stay in bed. But then we start hearing gunshot and yelling in Arabic. And Kfar Aza is close to Gaza. We're only 3 miles away, but we don't hear Arabic. At 11:30, we start hearing the terrorists come closer and closer. And then the terrorists broke our windows in the living room and the kitchen. And they managed to open the safe room. And they throw a grenade into the room. The grenade exploded, but it was far from us, so it was fine. And then they throw the second grenade. I got injured in my legs from the second grenade. And then they throw the third grenade. This time they didn't throw it, they rolled it to my direction. And my instinct was like, make myself invisible, the tiniest I can be, and I will be fine. But Neta was the opposite. He chose to yell grenade out loud. And when I look up, I see him jumping on the grenade, and while he jumped, they shoot him several of times in the stomach. And then he lie down on the grenade, and the grenade explode. And then they throw the fourth grenade that started a fire inside the room. And I couldn't breathe because of the smoke, so I put a shirt on my nose and wait. And eventually they left. I don't believe in goodbyes, not to Neta, because he is with me everywhere I go. I believe in love, and I will be loved again. Otherwise, Hamas killed the two of us. And I'm living the best life I could ever live, because otherwise, Neta died for nothing. I think I felt more alive this year, and it's weird because Neta is dead. How can I feel more alive? But he made me live my life. Thank you. Thank you so much. My life. In some ways, Neta was my life. He was my love, and it's for him that I stand strong here today. But it is because of you that I'm able to do that. In those first days and weeks of shock and grief, when the world seems to crumble around me, I had no idea that there was an entire community across the ocean working together, mobilizing, and raising the money to support me and so many others in ways we couldn't even imagine. Within the first day or two, I had people coming to me to offer support that you, made possible. The Jewish Agency Fund for the Victims of Terror was just one of the ways that your generosity offered a lifeline. Financial support, yes, but also so much more. Therapy to help me process the trauma, a shoulder to cry and lean on, a comfort of knowing that I wasn't alone, that I would never be alone. Yeah. Your support didn't just help me survive, it helped me take the first steps toward living again. We are here because terror does not discriminate. It can strike everywhere, anytime, shadowing life in an instant. But we are also here because we refuse to be defined by fear. Yeah. We will rebuild our communities. We will support those who have suffered, and we will live again, with courage and determination. My scars are a constant reminder of the grenade that exploded in the safe room, a reminder of the day my life forever changed. But they are also a symbol of my survival and my refusal to let the terror win. I stand before you as a testament to the power of your leadership. Your generosity and compassion have made a profound difference in my life and in the life of tens of thousands of Israelis affected by October 7th attack. It helps us find courage, hope in our despair, and community. It helped me live, and for that, I am forever grateful. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Wow. Thank you, Irene. Your story will remain in our hearts. But it goes far beyond the fund for the victims of terror. Since the 7th of October 2023, the Jewish Agency has worked with you and Jews around the world to strengthen Israel. Together, we have raised 10,000 business owners to stay afloat through direct grants. We have delivered 33,000 food packages to over 7,100 elderly residents in Amigur housing. And with Jewish passion and involvement stronger than ever before, there have been a record 33,000 people who have made Aliyah in this last year. Through your gift, you have been there for them too. The war continues in Israel, yet we are beginning to think about the next steps and how we can ensure that every Jew around the world can be part of rebuilding Israel's society. We will continue to bring in new Olim who will strengthen our economy and our society. We will allow every Jew around the world to be a part of helping Israeli through local shlichim, through volunteer work, and through our partnership networks that connect us all. I invite every Jew around the world to be part of this next step. We work with all of you in 66 countries around the world and with our close partners, the JDC, in securing Jewish communities, addressing the needs of the most vulnerable, and ensuring that each Jew can connect to their Jewish identity. My message to all of you is simply thank you. This work
This work cannot be done alone. No one person and no one organization can do it by themselves. It takes all of us. Thank you for your support. Thank you so much. We love you.
Please welcome back to the stage our scholar-in-residence, Michal Biton.
When I moved to this country from South America at age 12, there was a lot to learn. New foods, new ideas, new words. Some were easily translated, and others were pure American inventions. One of the terms I learned was the term Jewish peoplehood. Now let me ask you, how do you translate Jewish peoplehood into another language, into Hebrew or Spanish or French? Anybody? If you don't have an answer, it's because there isn't one. Jewish peoplehood is an American invention. The term was coined and became really popular in the 20th century in America to speak of Jews as a civilization with shared history and culture and religion. The term was always vague, broad, and ill-defined. In fact, scholars argue that the term became really popular because it was so ambiguous, because it allowed Jews to speak of themselves as a group, even while the ideology of an American melting pot was so predominant. But October 7th and the anti-Semitism we have seen since demands from us that we make sure we know what we mean when we say Jewish peoplehood. So I want to offer one word, one Hebrew word that I believe gets to the heart and the essence of Jewish peoplehood. Mishpacha, family. Or as I've learned to say in Ashkenazi American Hebrew, mishpacha, okay? I did it right, mishpacha, still working on it. What does it mean that Jewish peoplehood is mishpacha? Shortly after the Holocaust and the establishment of the State of Israel, Rabbi Soloveitchik asked a question. Are we still a Jewish people? With all of our dispersion, our diversity, Reform, Orthodox, Conservative, Sephardic, Ashkenazi, religious, secular, can we still say that we are one people? To answer this, Rabbi Soloveitchik returned to an old Talmudic question. The rabbis asked, what if a man with two heads, walks into the Bet Midrash, the house of study? Is it one man or two men? One person or two? Do they receive one portion of inheritance or two? For the lawyers in the room, should they file taxes once or twice? To answer this question, Rabbi Soloveitchik said, we can do a test. Take a pot of boiling water. Pour it on one of the heads. Then watch the other one. If it cries out in pain, then it is one person. If we cry out in pain for each other, then our Jewish peoplehood is mishpacha. But this is not just a metaphor. On the morning of October 7th, a man called Elchanan Kalmanson woke up to the horrific news coming out of southern Israel. He called up his brother Menachem, his nephew Itiel, and they drove from their home in their West Bank settlement of Otniel over 60 miles to Kibbutz Be'eri. Under fire from Hamas, they went from house to house and rescued family after family from brutal death. But some families did not want to open their doors of their safe rooms. They were afraid this was a trap. So Elchanan tried doing different things to convince them he was there to save them. He sang Simchat Torah songs. Not everyone knew them. So then Elchanan cried out ancient and sacred words that have been woven into the fabric of Jewish life throughout our history. Shema Israel, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Hear, O Israel, the Lord is our God, the Lord is one. When families heard these words, they opened their doors and they were saved. Tragically, Elchanan was killed, but not before he helped save 100 precious lives from Kibbutz Be'eri. I want you to think about that moment. A religious Zionist man on one side of the door, secular kibbutznikim on the other. They did not worship the same way. They did not vote the same way. They did not live the same way. But in that moment, they remembered the essence of what it means to be a Jew. And they recognized each other as brothers and sisters, as mishpacha. They did so using the very same words that our ancestor Jacob used on his deathbed to remind his children that despite all their disagreements and divisions, at the end of the day, they are brothers. The pain that we've experienced as a people on October 7th has reminded all of us that we are mishpacha. That is why we feel the pain of Jews we have never met from Amsterdam to Paris. That is why so many of you in this room have moved heavens and earth to help Israeli Jews thousands of miles away. That is why our hearts break, our voices cry out, and we will not stop advocating for our hostages who are still held in brutal captivity by Hamas. But as time goes on, we might be at risk of reverting back to that vague, ambiguous Jewish peoplehood. So it is up to us, over 2,000 of us from diverse backgrounds in this room. It is up to us to make sure that we remain committed to a vision of Jewish peoplehood as mishpacha. Let me tell you, we can have a broad and inclusive Jewish community filled with diversity and disagreements. We are so good at disagreements. Filled with diversity and disagreements, a broad and inclusive Jewish community without giving up on our solidarity and commitment to our mishpacha. Because Jewish peoplehood, mishpacha, it is the secret to our eternal survival. It is the foundation for Israel's existence today and its future tomorrow. And it is the thread that connects us American Jews to each other and to Jews around the world. let us, each of us, recommit today to make sure that we continue to be guided by this vision of mishpacha and breathe new life, breathe new spirit into the soul of our mishpacha here in this country, across our communities and around the world. Thank you.
Please welcome Rabbi David Wolpe, Rabbi Sharon Brous, and Rabbi Ari Berman.
This past week, we read about the beginnings of our people with Abraham, and according to the rabbis, Abraham saw the world as a palace that was doleket. And doleket can mean full of light or full of fire. It can be a world of pain or a world of beauty. And we've invited a couple of rabbis here today to talk about a year of pain and also a year of hope, a year of anguish and enchantment. And each of us are going to speak about a couple of moments that we have experienced this year that have enabled us to feel both of those emotions poignantly and unexpectedly in this most unexpected and painful of years. For me, at least in part, it was being at Harvard all year, which was already painful without any explanation required, and seeing the encampments and seeing a place of higher education turn into a place of vituperation and hatred. But it wasn't the most memorable part of the year. The most memorable part of the year was when I traveled with Julie Platt and other members of the Federation to Israel, met with hostage families, heard the daughter of Ron Benjamin talk about how every time she put food in her mouth, she couldn't eat because she didn't know if her father had food. When she got cold, she couldn't put a blanket on herself because she didn't know if her father was warm. And then on a subsequent trip, sitting next to a friend of mine whose son was serving in Gaza, and he told me that many of his friends have a sign on their door, and the sign says, "Do not knock," because they know what a knock means. It comes from the army, and it's about your child. And you realize not only the pain that people have endured, but the pain that they fear, the anxiety that they anticipate every single day, living in a land where their children are on the front lines. And so we don't only live with the pain of what has happened, but with the fear and anxiety of what might happen, and with the heroism of those who have both endured it and also, at least in spirit, have prevailed over it. So I'm going to ask Rabbi Berman first if he will share with us some moments from his year that he thinks of as particularly poignant and memorable.
Thank you so much, David. It's an honor to be here with you, to be with Sharon at this august meeting of the leadership of the American Jewish community. It's my distinct honor and to be in the presence of the co-chair of this General Assembly, a Yeshiva University alumnus, Gary Turgo, the past president, one of our trustees, Mark Wolf, who just spoke, and of course our dear friend, Julie Platt, and to be together with partners, truly the leaders who have showed us the way this year. You know, if you ask about the most poignant moment, there's no doubt for me, the most poignant one was on October 7th, and I was in Jerusalem on October 7th with hearing the air raid sirens, and I was standing with my son, who was at the time a senior at Hebrew University in computer science, but he's also a reservist in a combat unit in Givati. And he was told to go get his phone, and he saw that he was called up to service. And I had to send my son off to war not knowing what will happen to my son. He has been serving in the IDF for over 200 days. He's currently standing on the border of Gaza, and I ask you all to please include him, Yehuda, in your prayers, along with all of our soldiers who are in service of our people. But the moment that I want to share with this community is one perhaps on a note of tremendous partnership and hope. One of the aspects of being president of Yeshiva University is that I get to attend many basketball games. We have a very popular basketball team. Do people know that? Very popular basketball team. Like, I thought I was coming to Yeshiva University. It'd be great academics, they're professionals, they're business, they're rabbis, they're educators. But we have an amazing basketball team, the Yeshiva University Maccabees. They won 50 games in a row at one point, and we're ranked #1 in the country in Division III, #1 in the country. Now, we sing Hatikva before every game along with the Star Spangled Banner, and over this past year, they've been wearing the hostage faces on their warm-up jerseys. We are out in the world as proud Zionists and proud Jews. That is who they are. So there was one game that was deep in Pennsylvania, 4 hours away from New York, that took place on Erev Shabbat on Friday afternoon. And we thought that there wasn't going to be anybody in the arena that would be supporting our team. And we show up to the game, and the place is packed with our fans. And we asked them, "Where are you from?" And they said, "We're members of the local Reform Synagogue, and we're here to support our team, Yeshiva University."
Wow.
Pretty good.
And that's when our players realized that we are not playing for a school, we're playing for a people. And that is the sense that I have felt across this country, across the world with the Jewish youth and our adults, across this amazing Am Yisrael, across this mishpacha, that we all feel that we're playing for something larger than ourselves, we're playing for a people. And we are not defined and being cornered by hate, but we are defined because we support each other with love, with a shared mission and a shared purpose. And that's been my experience that's been defining this year.
Ari, I would say that's a slam dunk.
No.
Sharon?
That's a very good story. All I can say is that my son commentated the Yeshiva League basketball tournament this past weekend in Los Angeles. So that's my basketball credential, my Yeshiva basketball credential for you. I'm really honored and grateful for the opportunity to be with all of you today and to sit with my two colleagues up on this stage. I'll tell you two moments that I thought of when you asked the question, David. First of all, I was in Israel 2 weeks after October 7th as my niece became bat mitzvah. My family lives in Ra'anana. And it was very painful and very powerful to be there. But the story that I actually want to share happened not 2 weeks after, but actually just about 2 months ago. One of the 6 chatufim, one of the 6 hostages that was killed in the tunnels, executed along with Hirsch, was Almog Sarosi. Almog, as many of you know by now, was at the Nova Festival with his girlfriend Shachar. She was injured almost immediately when the attack came. And it was said that Almog could have made it out alive, but he stayed with Shachar so that he could be with her, and he was taken into captivity, and he survived nearly a whole year in captivity. And in those terrible days after the hostages were executed and there were funerals all around the country, my brother in Ra'anana went to Almog's funeral. There was not enough room in the tent where the mourners were. There were hundreds of people packed into that tent. But at some point, the mourners in the tent said the words, Yitgadal v'yikadash Shemei Rabbah. And the people who were around them in the tent said, Amen. And then the people who were standing the whole next block away outside of the tent heard the first Amen, and they said, Amen. And then the block behind them heard that Amen, and they said Amen. And my brother, who was about 2.5 or 3 blocks away, just heard this rolling Amen, and he and his family just closed their eyes and said Amen with all their hearts and soul. And when he shared this story with me, when he got home that night, we talked about the incredible power, what it means to be part of a family and part of a people that can show up for each other, strangers like family, as Michal just said, and with our own very presence, hold each other in moments of greatest sorrow and grief. And I share that story because that's what happened in my own community in Los Angeles over the course of the past year. That's what happened at Yeshiva University. That's what's happening in Jewish communities all over the country. People brought their broken hearts and sang together and prayed together and held each other. And there's an incredible power in that. And I first just want to affirm the power of community and what it means for us to be with one another in the dark, not to fix each other, not to make it okay because we can't, but just to grieve together. The second story that I want to share is something that I experienced myself when I just landed in Tel Aviv on July 1st this past summer. And I went and hugged my family, and then I went into an arena in Tel Aviv where there was a confab of all of the peace organizations that operate in Israel, run by Israelis and Palestinians alike. That arena was packed with 6,000 people. Every single seat was full. And one after the next, speakers got up and spoke about their pain, about their broken hearts and their sorrow. There were Israelis who had been in captivity, who thank God had been released. There were Israeli Jews who still had family members who were in captivity, and there were people who had lost their family members who were fighting in Gaza. There were Palestinians who lost many of their family members in Khan Yunis, in Gaza City. There were Palestinians whose family members in the West Bank had been victims of extremist violence in the West Bank. And together, one after the next, they spoke about their broken hearts, and then they said, Hazman higia, the time has come for a different path forward. And I was so moved by the fact that the people who are most proximate to the pain, Israeli Jews and Palestinians and Druze and Bedouin, could stand up and say there has to be a different future. Not yachad lenatseach, together we will be victorious over the other, but yachad letaken, together we can heal. When we honor each other's broken hearts and see each other's humanity, we can collectively build a just future. And for me, as an American Jew, just witnessing the courage that it took for those people to stand there and say those words, I thought, how can we as diaspora Jews not amplify and support and platform and resource those incredibly courageous voices in Israel itself?
So this is a beautiful lead-in to something that I want to ask you both, which is, we're American rabbis. What does this moment mean for the American Jewish community? Because this is where we live, this is our place. Today, as we'll hear in a little bit, is Veterans Day. It's a very American day. So what do we have to say about our own community and the way in which it confronts October 7th?
Well, I think that there are 3 points that I would discuss briefly. One is that there's a great renaissance that's taking place right now. The Jewish soul has been awakened. And we have seen the Jewish people return to their tradition in the most powerful ways. Now, we've seen this at Yeshiva University, where we're bursting at the seams with Jewish students, not just from the day school system, but from the broader community who are seeking a nourishing education that helps them understand their values and their core. And that is, but really all across the community. We're seeing people return to Torah, people return to Jewish tradition to find meaning in their faith. There's a Jewish renaissance that is happening right now. The second is that we have a universal mission. that our goal isn't just for our people. You know, one of the amazing things, I was just walking on our barren campus the other day, and a young woman introduced herself to me and said that she is Iranian. She's studying in our graduate school, and she just came from the University of Tehran, and now she's studying at Yeshiva. Wow. And she's studying biotech.
Is this an exchange program, Tehran?
It might be a one-way exchange program. But what's incredible is how many people, I was just walking around our halls, we have students from Zimbabwe and India and China and Burma, and we don't hide who we are. We're the flagship Jewish university. We're proudly Zionist. And people are not repelled by our values, they're attracted to our values. Right. And that if you lean into faith, and you lean into our tradition, that doesn't make you then insular, just the opposite. It gives you the roots in order to be forward and to shine and to bloom, where everyone prospers. And the third point is that our pattern of Jewish history is that from great destruction comes opportunity. The rabbis teach that the seeds of the redemption are planted in times of darkness. And we have not seen such brutality like October 7th. We have not seen a tidal wave of anti-Semitism triggered throughout the world since the Holocaust. But we've also not seen such historic opportunity, I would argue, forever. That there's an enormous moment right now with the Jewish Renaissance, with the possibility of spreading our values, not just to our people, but to the world. And with the disruption that creates enormous opportunity, my question for the American Jewish community is, does our dreams match this opportunity? Yeah. Are we aspiring high enough? In 1981, Rabbi Norman Lamb sat here, my predecessor's predecessor, at the General Assembly celebrating the 50th anniversary of the General Assembly. I think he said at the time that they raised $1 billion on the 50th year. And he said that the question that I have, he said, was where will we be in 50 years? Will there be another General Assembly in 50 years? Will we do the Jewish education to educate our children and our grandchildren? And now I am sitting here at, I think, like the 94th General Assembly, knowing that there will be a 100th Assembly, and saying this enormous success of the American Jewish community in education. And we should be proud of that, and we should recognize that and affirm that, and understand that our goal, though, isn't just continuity. Our goal is destiny. And the Jewish destiny is to take our values, embody them, live them, embrace them, and bring them out into the world. And we have enormous possibility to do that today. And my hope and aspiration for this General Assembly, as we think about for the next 50 years, it's not just about doing Jewish education and what kind of education, the ones that aspire and enable us to achieve our ultimate destiny.
I really agree with you that our goal as a people cannot just be to survive. We will survive this. We're survivors. We've survived terrible, terrible chapters in history. The question is, who will we be on the other side of this? And I really believe that this is a critical moment for our Jewish community to get very clear about who we are, about how seriously we take our own Torah, that every single human is created b'tselem Elohim, not just Jews, but every single human. How seriously we take Jewish history and what it means to have been the stranger for thousands of years, the oppressed, the persecuted, the beleaguered, the ones that nobody fought for. And can we put together our Torah and our history and articulate a set of core values that help us lead with our humanity, that help that light shine in a way that not only shines on our own people, but actually on all people. I was so moved this past year to read Rabbi Shai Held's new book. Many of you read it, I'm sure. Judaism is about love. And he talks about all of the ways that we've been raised to think that Christianity is about love and Judaism is about action, right? But actually Judaism is about love. And we look at Ve'ahavta l'reacha kamocha, which really is a call for us to love each other, even to love those who are across the aisle, to love those who have different politics, to love those who, look at the last Tuesday night very differently than we do, to love each other because we're family. But we're not only called to love our Jewish family. It also says in Devarim, it says, V'ahavtam et hager, right? We're called to love the stranger. And the stranger is defined as whoever is suffering the most in that moment. And frankly, that means to actually try to love and to see the humanity of and embrace the humanity of the Palestinian people even in this moment. Can we do both? Can we do both? We are living in a moment in which so many of us, including me, are absolutely devastated. My kid is on a college campus that is really at the epicenter. It has been an incredibly painful journey. I am so heartbroken by how binary this discourse is. You're pro this, you're anti that. Which team are you on? Which flag are you flying? Can we fly the flag of humanity? Can we say as Jews that we are called to love all humanity, our Jewish family, our Israeli family, and also to love anybody who's suffering? Anybody, any innocent person is created in the image of God. Can our hearts not understand what a moral catastrophe it is when any innocent person dies? And I believe that if the people in this room don't all agree with that message, maybe your kids do, or your grandkids do. They're seeing things differently. There is a generational battle that's happening right now because so many young people feel like they're attuned to a reality that their parents and grandparents just can't see. I believe that our hearts are capacious enough to hold it all, that we don't abandon our own family, we don't abandon Israel when we come to see that there is the possibility of a just future. I believe that if we don't acknowledge that reality, then we cannot fight anti-Semitism, then we cannot fight for Israel. We have to have a more holistic, more open-hearted understanding of the humanity of all of the people who are involved here so that we can actually build a just future for everyone.
My own experience has been actually that the two beautiful testimonies that you just heard are really one. Because when you speak Jewish, you speak to the world. When the United Nations, which is in theory the most universal institution in the world, wants to express itself, what does it put on the front of the building? Lo yisa goy el goy cherev, lo yilmedu od milchama. It speaks in a Hebrew accent, which is what the poet Heine said, that freedom speaks in a Hebrew accent. When I grew up in Philadelphia and you would visit the Liberty Bell, there was a verse from Leviticus on the Liberty Bell, proclaim liberty throughout the land. And Cynthia Ozick has a beautiful metaphor for this. She says, look at the shofar, it has a narrow end and a broad end. If you start off blowing in the broad end, you get nothing. But if you start off blowing in the narrow end, you get a sound that everyone can hear. And it is certainly true that the values of the Torah should be universal values. It is also true that for the American Jewish community, we are in a struggle that is, for most of us, somewhat new. I remember on October 8th, when I went to Harvard Hillel to be with the students, and I was approached by a woman who had been a soldier with the IDF before she came to Harvard, and she said to me, I'm scared to go back to my dorm. And she showed me the messages on the Slack channel that she had received that were terrifying. And I realized that it was a different moment from other moments we had known. And yet, it is really important for all of us to recall that we've been around too long to be hysterical, and we are also too wise to be naive. This is not a new battle, but there are also elements of it that are new. And so some of you know this story. A few months ago, now it was actually more than a few, in December, I was at this convention in Florida with 4,000 Jewish teens, BBYO. And I was, yeah, go ahead. You should absolutely applaud for BBYO. So I was on a panel with 3 other people, and the last question was, what gives you hope? And I was going to say 4,000 Jewish teens. Unfortunately, I was 4th on the panel. So by the time they got to me, everybody had said 4,000 Jewish teens. And I had this sudden, almost flash of revelation. I said, you know what gives me hope? I'm talking to my great-great-great-great-grandfather. And I say to him, you know, there's anti-Semitism at Harvard. And he says to me, there are Jews at Harvard? And I say, yeah, but they hate Israel. And he goes, there's an Israel? And I realized that our historical situation enables what we are saying. That is, we are strong enough to also be compassionate, and we are also strong enough to strengthen ourselves in the Jewish values that not only have brought us to this point, but that have enabled such leaders who can speak in such beautiful ways to suffering, to aspiration, to hope, to solidarity, to all the values that I know every single person in this room cherishes, or you wouldn't be in this room. So, I got some pretty firm marching orders, so we need a closing message from each of you there's no way to sum up all of this, but these are, in all sorts of different ways, the leaders and those who care most about the Jewish future in our country. So what have you to say to them? Is it okay, Sharon, if I start with you?
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to share with you a very short story, which is we took a trip with our community IKAR to Central Europe a couple of summers ago, and we visited Kosice, which is a town in Slovakia, because one of the people who organized it from our community, her family was from Kosice. And there used to be 12,000 Jews in Kosice. It was 1 in 5 people in the town. It was a very Jewish town. Almost all of them were murdered in Auschwitz. When they rounded up the Jews, they brought them into the big synagogue in the center of town, and they stayed there for many, many days while they awaited deportation. And since almost everybody was killed, the synagogue essentially sat like it was the day the last Jew was dragged out of there for 60 years. Until one day, someone went in and started to clean it up and think that they maybe would do a little bit of renovation. And when they did, they actually started to pull some of these wooden pews off the walls. When they pulled the wooden pews off the walls, they saw behind the wall a miracle. They saw behind the pew on the wall these pencil scrawlings where the Jews who had been forced to wait in that place for days, knowing that they were likely heading to their death, scrawled saying, "It is 1944. We don't know where they are taking us. We need you to know that we were here." We came a couple of years later and we saw those scrawlings. And I was so struck by the incredible act of faith that these Jews awaiting their death believed that one day there would be Jews left in the world. And those Jews might come back to this place, and those Jews might pick up their dream and actually find meaning in their lives and their deaths. This is a moment of political earthquake in this country, just as it is in Israel. And I believe that our dreams matter profoundly. And the message I gave my community after the election was, we share our dreams, we live our values, even if we cannot see them manifest immediately. We scrawl them with pencils on the walls that will be covered with wooden pews, because we know and trust as a Jewish people that one day someone will find those messages and will carry on our dreams for this country, for the state of Israel, and for the future of humankind. And I think that that is absolutely the very best way that we can respond to the challenges of extremism and human cruelty and callousness that we're fighting today, to keep holding on to our dreams, because, my God, we desperately need them.
Thank you.
I feel blessed to be in your presences, to be here at this assembly. What gives me hope, David, is, of course, the next generation. It's, of course, the fact that we're building on the incredible, secure roots of our fathers, our mothers, our grandparents, great-grandparents. And I will also say, what gives me hope is that I know that we have allies. After October 7th, when I saw what the presidents of some universities were unable to do, I started a coalition of university presidents who were able to sign on to the statement that we stand with Israel, with the Palestinians who suffer under Hamas's cruel rule in Gaza, and with all people of moral conscience. We had over 100 university presidents who signed. It was major public and private universities, faith-based universities, and historically black colleges and universities. One of my first calls was to a dear friend of mine, Rochelle Ford, president at the time of Dillard University. She spoke at the Washington rally last year based on this this leadership of the coalition. And she said to me when she heard how sad my voice was after October 7th, she said to me, Ari, the Jewish people win when Moses holds his hands up. But who holds Moses' hands up? It's Aaron and Hur. Let us be your Aaron and Hur. You can lean on us.
Wow.
And what I found consistently is that when we speak with moral clarity, like in this case calling out clearly that Hamas's massacres are evil, and that we can't accept brutality, and that rape and murder and burning children alive is something that all people of moral conscience, whatever seat you sit in a university, should be able to say. That when we speak with moral clarity, other people stand with us. That when we stand with conviction for our values, other people stand with us. They respect it, they see the conviction, and they stand with us. There is enormous opportunity today, enormous. And it's not just about Jewish education, Jewish continuity, it's about Jewish destiny. And all of us need to be aligned to that purpose, to inhabit ourselves, our strengths, our values, and bring out our mission to our people and out into the world.
Thank you. So I want to close by telling you a story that I tell now at every opportunity, because I think in some ways it is the story of the Jewish people, and it's a very old one. You know, we don't talk about the afterlife as much as some other traditions, although there is more talk about the afterlife than most Jews think. But there is a very good old word for hell in the Jewish tradition, and that word is Gehenna. What you might not know is that Gehenna is a real place. There is a valley outside the walls of Jerusalem called the Valley of Hinnom. And there, a little more than 50 years ago, some Israeli archaeologists were excavating in the Valley of Hinnom in Gehenna. And excavating there, they came upon the oldest bit of Torah that exists in the world. 2 rolled up silver amulets. You can still see them if you go to the Israel Museum. And when they finally unrolled these amulets and they found this oldest bit of Torah that exists in the world, this is what it said. Yevarecha Hashem v'yishmerecha. Yair Hashem panav elecha v'yichuneka. Yisa Hashem panav elecha v'yasem lecha shalom. May God bless you and keep you. May God's countenance shine upon you and be gracious to you. May God be with you and give you peace. What that means is the oldest bit of Torah, more than 600 years older than the Dead Sea Scrolls, that we have in this world from the destruction of the first temple out of the midst of destruction, is a blessing of peace that was snatched from hell. That's who we are. That's what we have done again and again and again in our history. And I have no doubt that we will do it again, as you have already seen people doing it in process here on this very stage, people who have been through hell and yet have managed to find blessing. As long as we continue to be true to that legacy, to that tradition, to that Torah, as long as we continue to produce leaders like these rabbis, we will, in fact, bring the world a blessing of peace. Thank you.
Okay, amazing. Thank you, Sean. That was great.
please welcome to the stage the co-chair of the Israel Emergency Allocations Committee and the chair of the Professional Talent Committee at the Jewish Federations of North America, Jeff Schoenfeld.
Good afternoon. It is an immense privilege for me to introduce a great friend of our North American community, the President of the State of Israel, Isaac Herzog. Not yet, just a moment. But your instincts were right. President Herzog has exemplified extraordinary strength, compassion, and leadership on behalf of Israel and the entire global Jewish community since the events of October 7th. Since that tragic day, President Herzog and First Lady Michal Herzog have been a constant presence, working tirelessly to support victims, families, and communities devastated by the atrocities. I recently heard him say that they have met with over 1,000 bereaved families, along with those wounded on that day and since, offering words of solace and support and ensuring that they know they are not alone in their grief and that both Israel and diaspora communities stand firmly with them. Throughout the past year, President Herzog has also been a powerful diplomatic leadership. He's been a vocal advocate on the world stage, articulating Israel's right and duty to defend itself against terror while working to build international support. He's also worked to galvanize the global Jewish community, reminding us all that Israel's destiny is our destiny, that Israel's strength is deeply connected to our solidarity and generosity of Jews everywhere in the world. President Herzog comes from a proud lineage of extraordinary leaders. His father, Chaim Herzog, served as Israel's 6th president and was instrumental in shaping Israel's place on the world stage. His grandfather was the chief rabbi of Israel, Rabbi Yitzhak Halevi Herzog. And yet, President Herzog has stepped into this role with his own vision, focusing on strengthening unity within Israel, fostering peace with neighbors, and bridging the gaps within the Jewish world, between Israel and the diaspora, between communities, and among people of all walks of life. Now, please rise. It is my deep honor to give the warmest JFNA welcome to the President of the State of Israel, His Excellency, President Isaac Herzog.
Thank you. Toda rabba. Thank you, dear brothers and sisters. Dear sisters and brothers, I know many of you, so I send you a hug from here, security issues and all. But truly, achayot v'achim, as we say, as we come together in Washington, D.C., the capital of our greatest ally and friend, 101 Israeli women, children, and men are still missing. They have been held in brutal captivity by Hamas terrorists, enduring hell for over 400 days. With us here today are the families of Yair Veitan Horn, Arbel Yahud, Romy Gonen, Keith Siegel, Sagi Dekel Chen, Omer Nutra, Itai Chen, and Nimrod Cohen. Their loved ones. Their loved ones, our loved ones, have been held hostage for over a year. Like you, I pray for them daily. I cling to every update, and I fear for their well-being and safety. As Jews, we know that there is no greater mitzvah than redeeming captives, what we call pidyon shvuim. So we must all do more. We must use every tool at our disposal and every platform within reach to bring them back home, every single one. Failure to bring back our hostages home will leave our nation hemorrhaging and scarred for generations. It will tear through the delicate fabric of our people. I call on you, American Jewish leaders, keep fighting for our people, keep fighting to bring them home. We must all together fight with every fiber of our being to do whatever we can to bring them home immediately. I know we all share deep love and concern for our brave IDF soldiers, our Chayalim. This morning, we received yet another crushing reminder of the heavy toll this war has taken. Hundreds of thousands of Israelis chose to leave their homes and families to fight a war we did not want and we did not choose. They have been fighting on our behalf. They have been fighting on your behalf. We all pray for their success. May God bless them and keep them. May they all return home safely. And may our wounded soldiers and civilians recover fully in body and soul. Dear friends, as President of the State of Israel, I congratulate President-elect Donald Trump, a champion of peace and cooperation and a great friend of Israel. In our conversation just a few days ago, following his election, we spoke of the urgent need to bring our hostages back home. President Trump reiterated his love for Israel. I thanked him for his friendship and wished him every success in leading Israel and the Middle East towards a future of security and prosperity. I take this opportunity to express gratitude and admiration to the 46th President of the United States, my dear friend Joe Biden, for his lifetime of friendship with Israel and devotion to the Jewish people. The President's steadfast support from the very beginning of the war was a moving display of leadership and kinship that Israel will never forget. I look forward to meeting with President Biden tomorrow and thanking him on behalf of the state and people of Israel for standing by us in our most difficult moment. I also thank Vice President Kamala Harris for actively voicing her solidarity with the Israeli people. Vice President Harris and I have known each other for a number of years. We spoke regularly throughout the war, and I'm grateful for her important voice and our close friendship. Dear friends, I will skip to the end and say, there is hope. Lo avda tikvatenu. But a year ago, hope seemed to be slipping away. On the evening of last year's Simchat Torah, October 6, 2023, many of us danced and rejoiced with the Torah scrolls that have infused our lives with meaning. The next morning, October 7th, we were awakened by sirens and cries for help. The world we knew had shattered. The scope of horror and devastation challenged realities we trusted and raised questions we never imagined our generation would face. In essence, this past year, I saw my people facing a choice. And I saw my people, the people of Israel, choosing life. So I would like to share with you some of what I saw and experienced since the day our world changed. Virtually every single day since October 7th, my wife Michal and I met with bereaved families, families of hostages, survivors, and evacuees. We paid respects to thousands of mourners in Jewish, Muslim, Druze, and Christian homes. We met with Nova Festival survivors, many with PTSD, and with children left without family and without a home. We visited almost every hospital in Israel, spoke with thousands of wounded soldiers and civilians in emergency rooms and in rehab. We met with the women and little children who returned from cruel captivity in Gaza. We saw people who lost almost everything a human being can lose: family, love, freedom, security, livelihood, shelter. We met with tens of thousands of Israelis who went through hell. One of the profound moments I experienced this past year, a moment which I will carry with me as long as I live, was standing at the bedside of IDF Captain Ro'i Nahari, a 23-year-old paratrooper platoon commander, lying in Soroka Hospital, surrounded by his family. On October 7th, Ro'i dashed southward without hesitation, together with his team. They saved countless lives in a courageous battle in Kibbutz Kfar Aza, until Ro'i was fatally wounded. As their son took his final breaths, Ro'i's parents asked Michal and me to come into their hospital room to be with their family in their most sacred, intimate moment, their moment of parting from their beloved Ro'i. We saw a mother and a father, Iris and Ronen, standing heartbroken, yet upright. We saw siblings lifting their eyes with tears and pride. We saw Ro'i's twin brother, Bar, also an officer in the paratrooper, lying on him, holding him, weeping uncontrollably, unwilling to part. I will never, ever forget saying goodbye to a hero I did not know. By saluting Ro'i during those agonizing moments, his family chose to honor the values for which we are holding this state, the values for which he died, and the meaningful life he lived. I said to Ro'i's family what I would later repeat to nearly 1,000 bereaving families. Michal and I would meet throughout the year. I cannot change the terrible fate. It is indeed terrible. But as President of the State of Israel, I have the unique honor and privilege of looking into their eyes and saying thank you on behalf of the people and nation of Israel. Last month, dear friends, as we marked 1 year to that Black Sabbath, Michal and I traveled to nearly every community attacked by Hamas on October 7th, beginning at 6:29 a.m. at the Novel Festival site. At every stop of the 3-day journey of remembrance and reflection, we lit a Yortzeit candle, laid a wreath, and prayed for the hostages' return. In each of these encounters, with warriors on the front line and warriors on the home front, we were welcomed with broken hearts and the mighty spirit of Israel. We saw communities literally rise from the ashes, choosing life and beginning to rebuild. This is where it dawned on me that what makes us the eternal people, Am HaNetzach, is our insistence on choosing life. We are a nation that chooses life. Yes, yes. Dear friends, the American Jewish community also made a choice. You chose to mobilize for Israel like a family, with no ifs and buts, instantaneously, no questions asked. You, Federation members and leaders from all across America, chose to come to Israel, to pay Shiva calls, to provide funding, to volunteer. You chose to demonstrate solidarity and bear witness. You chose to show up for us when we needed you most. The warmth and the affection and love expressed by World Jewry gave the Israeli people a lifeline and strength to persevere. This was our finest hour, and this was also your finest hour. We are now seeing the needs in Israel growing, spreading from south to north. Over the past few months, Israel's northern border has been under constant attack, with rockets targeting millions of Israeli citizens, killing civilians and foreign nationals, forcing hundreds of thousands from their homes. Over the past 24 hours, hundreds of rockets were fired from Lebanon into Israel. And yet, while still under fire, we are beginning to rebuild because we are choosing to ensure the safe return home of our citizens up north and down south. Yes, thank you. The challenges are great, and the needs will be substantial. I applaud the Jewish Federations of North America for your remarkable efforts throughout the year, and I commend the JFNA for choosing to launch your new campaign to meet the growing needs. This past year, I had the pleasure of working closely with the outstanding JFNA leadership, Chairperson Julie Platt, JFNA President Eric Fingerhut, campaign co-chairs Steve Hoffman and Jeff Schoenfeld, and head of your Israeli office, Becky Caspi, and her team. Along with many, many distinguished board members and federation presidents who all demonstrated Jewish public service at its best. You truly made a difference. I thank you all for leading this magnificent, historic operation, and I cherish the trust and the friendship which we share. Dear friends and dear family, the global Jewish community faces considerable challenges. The terrifying scenes from Amsterdam just a few days ago, in which Israelis and Jews ran for their lives in the heart of a European city, invoked dark images we declared never to see again. The civilized world cannot tolerate a mob seeking out Jews, and we will not allow this to be normalized. Israelis have been following with great concern the startling wave of anti-Semitism, both systematic and instigated, flooding the United States and the Jewish world. We see the widespread hatred and the infectious ignorance and our hearts ache. The well-being of Jews in the United States, in Europe, and all around the world is intrinsic to who I am as a Jew and as an Israeli. And speaking here as the head of state of the only nation state of the Jewish people, it is clear this is a struggle which we share and a challenge we face together. Thank you. I am deeply invested in this urgent battle, and I applaud each of you for choosing to be at the forefront, working with Jewish organizations all over the world and communities to safeguard the Jewish people. Much of the anti-Semitism which we are seeing is an evolution of the age-old hatred of Jews. But for many years now, we have seen the engine behind the modern-day anti-Semitism, the Iranian regime and its allies. The Iranian regime calls for the annihilation of the State of Israel openly and blatantly, and is seeking nuclear weapons. It is truly an empire of evil, spreading hatred throughout its numerous proxies, social networks, and agents all over the globe. The Ayatollah regime is our enemy because of its intentions and actions. And still, we must differentiate between the regime and the Iranian people who deserve better. It is clear to me that most Iranians seek the same peace and freedom to which we aspire. I call on the Iranian people, who come from a rich tradition of proud heritage and culture, to choose to rise up and change the direction to which their leaders are dragging them. Israel is slowly tipping the balance of power in its multi-front war against Iran and its proxies. From here in Washington, D.C., I call on the free world to challenge the barbarism with force and conviction, without fear, united with our allies, chief amongst them, the United States of America. Dear sisters and brothers and friends, October 7th was a defining moment in Jewish history, not only because of the massive devastation, but because it reminded Jews what we need we need each other, and that we have each other. We have all seen how much strength we can summon and how much comfort we can draw from choosing to come together as one people. A number of months ago, I launched my presidential initiative titled Voice of the People, Kol Ha'am. With the combined efforts of our extraordinary partners, Voice of the People will serve as a global Jewish task force offering practical solutions for the matters most concerning the Jewish people. Because the only way to navigate the challenges our people are facing is to face them together as a people. The countless examples of pure courage and sacrifice that I was fortunate to learn about reminded me again and again that we are an eternal people, not because we are survivors, but because we are believers and because we are fighters. We fight. We fight for our hostages. We fight for our people. We fight for our Jewish values and Jewish identities. We fight for our Jewish souls. We fight for our Jewish communities. We fight for our beloved Jewish democratic state of Israel. We fight for the future of our children. We are eternal because of the choices we make, because we choose life, because we choose each other. Right now, today, we can choose not to be defined by the tragedy that has struck us, but to define ourselves by the resilience with which we emerge from it. Because if we cry together, rally together, mourn together, we can also choose to rebuild together. We are all stakeholders in the Jewish future, and the choice is ours, only ours. A few months ago, dear friends, I had a long, emotional conversation with a grieving mother. She said that choosing life is very, very difficult for her, because it forces her to face the loss every single day. But I told her that Am Yisrael Chai is not a birthright nor a privilege. It is a duty, and it is a choice that we make every moment of every day. Achiotai ve'echai, my dear sisters and brothers, let us choose to rebuild our eternity together. Lo avda tikvateinu means we did not lose any hope. I say to you, we will not lose any hope, and we shall prevail together. Thank you all. Bless you. Chizku v'imtzu.
Thank you, the incredible President Herzog. We have one more piece of business tonight. One more piece of business before you leave. Today is November 11th. It is Veterans Day in the United States. So this day was originally known as Armistice Day. And though World War I didn't officially end until months later, the guns of Europe fell silent in 1918 on the 11th hour of the 11th day of the 11th month, November 11th, 1918. And it was on November 11th, 1919, 1 year later, that President Woodrow Wilson declared the first Armistice Day to be observed by parades and public meetings, and a national pause in business at 11 a.m. It wasn't until 1954, after the experience of both World War II and the Korean War, that Congress and the President changed the name to Veterans Day to recognize the veterans of all who had served America in uniform. My father, Samuel Fingerhut, served in World War II, and my father-in-law, Sid Arthur, served in Korea, where he was wounded in action. They're both gone now. My father is buried in the Jewish War Veterans section of the Zion Memorial Cemetery in Cleveland, and Amy's father is buried at Arlington National Cemetery, each of their wives lying beside them now. Their experience of service surely impacts who I am and how I think. But our fathers are but two of the countless millions of American Jews who have proudly worn the uniform of the United States. And so I'm pleased to acknowledge Commander Charles Miller, retired United States Navy officer of the Jewish War Veterans Post 6792. Thank you for your service, sir. You know, World War I lasted over 4 years, from 1914 to 1918. World War II lasted 6 years, from 1939 to 1945. The Korean War, 3 years, 1950 to 1953. The Vietnam War, depending how you count, lasted nearly 20 years. To my father and my father-in-law and their generation, wars that lasted just 6 days, as Israel's triumph in 67 did, or 19 days, as the Yom Kippur War did in 73, these were the exceptions to wars that were long and grueling. Perhaps this is why we struggle with how best to lead our community at this moment. The war in Israel, as we know, is over a year old, while the war in Ukraine is over 2.5 years old. We hope that both will end soon, but for now they are raging as fiercely as the day they began. We have responded to both emergencies magnificently, overwhelmingly, but how long can the situation still be called an emergency? How can we maintain the support for these extraordinary needs while not neglecting, indeed while investing in the needs and opportunities of our community? That is why we are here together at this important General Assembly. I've been listening in the featured sessions and in the hallways. We've tried to bring as many experts as possible to speak with us, but ultimately, it is the conversations among ourselves that chart our course. Continue to listen to as many voices as you can. Close your ears to no one. I promise I will do the same. When the messenger who was sent to curse Israel looked out over our encampments and our fortifications, what today we call our communities, he instead blessed them with the words, Ma tovu ohalecha Yaakov mishkenotecha Yisrael. How goodly are your communities, O Jacob, your dwelling places, O Israel. And so I bless you in these same words. How beautiful are the communities you have built, O descendants of Jacob, in every major city and small hamlet from Atlantic to the Pacific and north to south. May our prayer be favorable at this time. May this General Assembly be a favorable time for all our important discussions and decisions. Happy Veterans Day. To all veterans present, we thank you for your service. Enjoy your evening.